Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. We're hitting request day today, and today's request is Xolatoyac, the Smiling Flood. I think that's how you say it anyway. 4 green and blue for a 6/6 Salamander Serpent. And whenever we'll go with Zello because I can say that. Xolatoyac? I don't know. Whenever the Smiling Flood attacks, enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a flood counter on a target land. That land is an island in addition to its other types for as long as it has a flood counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, untap each permanent you control with a counter on it. Great, love that plan. This has been requested by one of the people who regularly comes and has games with me on streams, and I really had a long think about this one. I had a look. So, the obvious thing is +1/+1 counters. Straightforward, simple. Maybe some merfolk to give them island walk and go that way. I did think about that, and then it just wasn't strong, I'll be honest. And then I thought, right, let's go look at go back to Ikoria and have a look and see what types of counters we can throw around there from green and blue. And yeah, wasn't really that impressed with that either. So I had to be a little bit boring in the end. And although I included some aspects of all of this, I went down the +1/+1 counter route. So I'm really sorry if this is not what you're expecting. And I tried. I really did try. I spent about 2 hours. It's probably the longest time I've spent trying to build a deck for the YouTube channel for a long, long time. But we'll go through it. It's still fun. It's still a good deck. I played it once and it did do reasonably well. I came second in the game I played. So it's got the power there to do it. So here you go. Here's what today's deck really does look like. Starting at the beginning, one of the cards that I could find that had counters on it we could chuck around was Vivian, Monster's Advocate, the Planeswalker from Ikoria. We can cast creature spells from top of our library and look at the top card of our library at any time. And then we get to put a 3/3 for a +1, 3/3 beast creature token into play, and we get to put a Vigilance, Reach, or Trample counter on it. So yeah, that's one way of getting counters around, which is all good to me. I do like the -2 as well. When you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with less or converted mana costs, put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. Do like that one as well, to be fair. So we went heavy. We went with creatures. So Landwar Elf, Arbor Elf I went with for a change because I like the untap ability. Birds of Paradise, and then we got some evolved creatures on the go. I thought we'd have a bit of fun with evolve. So we have Cloudfin Raptor, then we have Elvish Mystic, Experiment, one for more evolving stuff, Goldvein Hydra, because we're in green, and you know how I feel about this card at the moment. To chuck around the +1/+1 counters, we had Bristling Bill. And then we had Gear Sage to jump up on our mana, so with the evolve ability. Incubation Druid for the adaptations as well, so we can make a 3/5 with the type of mana we want. Kiora's Follower, and taps another target permanent we control, one of the remaining merfolk in the deck. Throwing Bird to do the proliferation, to make those 1/1 counters double up as we get there, or extra one anyway. Arwen, Weaver of Hope was a bit of a no-brainer. We want +1/+1 counters, I decided, so I went with this. So the creatures come in with 1 equal to Arwen's toughness. Battering Karasis is also in for the evolve ability, the 2/1 for 3 mana with trample and evolve. Crystalline Giant is one of the other cards from Ikoria where I could think of that you could chuck around different types of counters. You get to put a flying, first strike, death touch, hexproof, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, vigilance, +1/+1 counter on this at the beginning of each combat. The first turn you play this, you play it in your first main phase, and then you probably put a +1/+1 counter on at the beginning of that combat, and then you go from there with whatever you need after that. Evolution Sage lets us have a bit of proliferation with the landfall triggers. Evolution Witness just adapts, and we get to do the whole return something from a we get to return a permanent card from our graveyard to our hand. Lonus Genetics Expert I thought was a bit of fun, coming in from the Clue set as well. Has the evolve ability, and when we chuck +1/+1 counters on Lonus, we investigate that many times, and then when we sacrifice the Clue, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature we control. So yeah, we can share them out so things can get untapped by our Smiling Flood every so often. Mana Gorger, no brainer for this deck. Savala, more mana, we like this. Singer of the Swift Rivers is one of the other creatures that comes into play and puts a different type of counter around. This one puts a shield counter on, so this is quite nice. If we have our Smiling Flood in play, flash this in to put a shield counter on to prevent it being destroyed, so that kind of helps. Vorel of the Hell Clade is also in as well, so we can double the types of counters on a creature. The Watchful Ragstag comes in from Fallout, has the evolve ability, and when it evolves we get a token that's a copy of it. Okay then. Actrimus, the Lumbering Isle, comes in. It gives us with 5 slumber counters on it. It's a land when it has a slumber counter on it. When it's not a land, you get to tap it for a green and a blue, and we get to, whenever we cast a spell, we get to remove a counter from it. So yeah, okay then. Eluge makes another appearance to chuck around some more flood counters for this one type of thing, to turn things into islands again. Fathom Mage for the evolve and the card draw ability. Zegana Utopian Speaker is also in. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another creature with a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card, and then we get to adapt it, and it means all our creatures with +1/+1s have trample. Yeah. Zimone Paradox Counter Sculptor chucks around +1/+1 counters, and we can double the number of counters of each kind on up to 2 target creatures or artifacts we control. For the mana, Defiler of Dreams makes our blue spells cost 2 life, well, less 1 blue mana and 2 life to get a card draw when we cast a permanent, and Defiler of Vigor chucks around +1/+1 counters like no man's business. Marcus Mutant Mage also comes in from Fallout. If a creature you control deals combat damage to player, draw a card if it has a +1/+1 on it. If it doesn't, put a +1/+1 on it. Thank you. Merkfin Liege pumps everybody up and then does the whole untapping each player's upkeep. Octomancer comes in as well from the Bloomburrow Commander decks. You get to give someone an Octopus, but at the beginning of each end step, create a token that's a copy of target creature token that entered the battlefield this turn. So not just your tokens, but anyone's tokens, and you get copies of them. So lovely, fun card that was played against me quite regularly by the person who actually asked me to look at this deck. So, you know, you had part one of the cards for your 99 already going against me. Overlord of the Hauntwoods for the Everywhere lands. Seedborn Muse for untap everything in each opponent's upkeep. Untap step, sorry. Azizi, Tyrant of the Gaia Strait to do the Hail, let's play an additional land and do the landfall card draw. And then the 2 versions of Coma, the Cosmos Serpents here and the World Eaters here as well. I like both of them, so it's all great fun to me. Spells, really ramp spells. Farseek, Nature's Law, 3 visits to kick off the ramping. And then Echo of Eon, so we can shuffle everything back in when it goes pear-shaped and draw 7 new ones. And Inspiring Refrain for the continuous card draw that we get on every 3rd turn. Instance, Sudden Spinneret is one of the cards I was talking about from Ikoria that puts a reach counter on a creature, but you get to untap it as well as the +1/+3, so you have a reasonably good sized blocker. Cyclonic Rift, the game changes here, just so we can deal with the board if we need to. Heroic Intervention keeps all our things alive. And then the other card from Ikoria that I found that I like the look of was Fully Grown. 3 mana for +3/+3 and a trample counter. Yeah, okay then. Artifacts are the ramp side of things, so Elixir of Immortality, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, the green and blue medallions, Talisman of Curiosity, and then Ancient Cornucopia, because we have a lot of multicolored cards here, so it gives us a bit of life gain and a bit of ramp. And the Sword of Truth and Justice, +1/+1 counters and proliferate. The pro-white, pro-blue also helps along with a +2/+2 when things go pear-shaped against those coloured decks. Enchantments, well, I did say we're going down the +1/+1 route, so Hardened Scales is here. Simic Ascendancies are here, because we could win the game that way. Branching Evolution for even more of the +1/+1s. Bred for the Hunt is also in. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to play, we get to draw a card. Court of Garenbrig, hopefully we'll steal the Monarch and we get to double up +1/+1 counters, but we get to chuck them around in our upkeep. Primal Empathy, at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest power amongst creatures on the battlefield. Otherwise, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on something. That's pretty good. Rhystic Study here is another game changer, and then Sylvan Scavenging for even more tokens or +1/+1 counters, along with Tribute to the World Tree. We all know what they do. Lands, because we're in green and blue, we went with a bit low, 35. Card draw and all the rest of the blue-green lands you could possibly expect to see in a deck like this, including Oran Reef to chuck around even more +1/+1 counters on green creatures that enter, and that's really it. There's nothing particularly fancy here. Yavimaya here, but, you know, Reliquary Tower, Temple of the False God, I'll mention them, but that's it. I think for this, though, I will come back to this card at some stage. I'm sure I'm missing a trick somewhere. And it is probably something I'm going to have to revisit in the future, especially if we start to see more counter types. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the MtGO online versions of the Marvel sets when they hit now after the announcements this week. And I expect there may be counters in there. And hopefully it'll be something that we can make with the Smiling Flood a bit more interesting. But it's definitely a starting point. It's how I'm going to play it for now. You'll be able to see the deck on stream. I'll play it on stream as soon as we get around to streaming again. Please, if you've got any ideas, I would love to hear ideas. Please leave ideas in the comments down below. I'd really appreciate it. I don't think I've missed anything major, so if I have, I'd really like to know about it, just so I can update the deck. Because, you know, when people ask me to build decks, I do like to try and do the best I can. And like I say, this is the best I've come up with so far for our Smiling Flood. So any ideas will be greatly received. Please hit the like button. Please hit the share button. Do all the things to help me appease the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, and if you haven't been here before, please hit the subscribe button. As I record this, there's 665 of us subscribed here, so the more the merrier. Help me get a little bit closer to that 1,000 target. I'd appreciate it. But for now, thanks for watching. I will definitely be back tomorrow with yet another deck that I've been looking at, and this is just going to be an updated dragon deck using the Tarkir stuff. For now, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.